the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. Today, I am lucky enough to be with Chet Meisner. Chet, could you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Sure. So I'm a writer now, and I've been a writer most of my career. I spent the first parts of my career teaching college, and then I decided college teaching wasn't right for me. But while I was doing that, I was teaching writing as well as acting and directing. And then I started a marketing company, and I did a lot of advertising writing. People think that advertising writing is dry, but I kind of look at it as like a preparation for writing fiction. Because that's really what it ends up to be a lot of times. So I wrote lots of advertising copy. I wrote for television, I wrote for radio, I wrote for direct mail campaigns, I wrote for just about everything there is. And then when I got to the point in life where I decided I wanted to do something I really wanted to do, then I went ahead and got involved in learning how to write novels, fiction, and that's where I am now.
That is so interesting. So marketing was your gateway into fiction.
That's right. That's right. It was. And you also learn when you're writing for clients like I was, because I was running an advertising agency. And so you don't really get to write what you want to write. You have to write what the client wants you to write. So you learn really quick that there's an audience out there. And depending on the audience, you have to be a different person and be a different writer, which is really important, I think, for any writer to learn, because a lot of people start out and they think, well, I'm just going to write what I want to write. And they find out pretty quickly that not everybody in the world is interested in what they have to write. So that's one of the first things I tell people. I'm in a critique group like most writers are. And, we find when new writers come in, they have that problem. And we have to say, no, you really got to write to the audience. Well, I don't want to write to the audience. Well, good luck. So
I went to a writer's group, and we had a visitor come one time who was very excited about the book he had just written. And we asked him what type of genres he liked to read. And he said, well, he doesn't read.
there you go.
Well, okay. How do you know your book fits in the right genre?
Well, knowing the audience is really key. I mean, if you've read as much as I have, and I'm sure you've read more probably than I have, you go from genre to genre, and the styles are entirely different, and the requirements are different, and you have to know where you're going to put the book in order for it to work. So.
And you've published both traditionally and self-published. How does the knowing the audience change with that?
Right. So a lot. So the traditionally published book was a marketing book based on my experiences in running a marketing company. And so it was a how-to book. When I found publisher who was ready to publish the kind of book that I wrote, I was really excited. And I thought, well, this is going to be really great. I'm going to get a chance to write down what I know and what I like to talk about. So I wrote the first draft of the book, and I thought it was pretty good. And I sent it to them, and they said, well, we really like this a lot, but we need it to be twice as long, because they had things that they wanted in it that they knew that the audience needed to have. Spent a little time trying to get an agent for my fiction book, and then decided to publish it myself. But as I was talking to agents and getting feedback from them, certain agents have certain markets that they like to focus on. Those are the people they read, and the things that they know, and places where they have contacts. So you can't get disappointed just because an agent says, no, I'm not right for your book. They're probably not. They probably either don't like that genre, don't read in that genre, or they don't have any contacts where they can sell it. So you have to learn to switch and target your audience.
I have been doing this podcast for about 5 years, and I haven't heard it put that way, that, a lot of it comes down to the contacts that the agents would have. And, I understand it's more like it's a marriage and you have to make sure that you fit together well, all that good stuff. But, I don't know why I had the blinders on for their contacts, because that's what it really comes down is their relationships.
Yeah, actually, I had an agent tell me that in person when I was at Florida Writers Meeting, where you go and you visit the agents and talk to the agents. And I had chosen her because I thought she was in my genre. And she took a look at my piece and she said, "Well, this isn't my genre." And I said, "Well, but you rep me anyway." And she said, "No, because I don't have any contacts."
Well, that makes it easy. You can't fault them for that.
Yeah, no.
So you also have a background in theater and acting. How does that play into your novel writing?
Well, in some ways, creative is creative is creative. When you're acting and directing, and I have my master's degree is in theater, and I spent a couple of years teaching, and I had the good fortune to study under one of the top devotees of Stanislavski's acting system, which is what we in America call method acting. And you get really deeply into the character. You have to build a character. In other words, if you're an actor, you have to come up with a background for your character. You have to think about how your character will react in certain situations. You have to come up with physical and vocal gestures that show the audience how the actor's thinking, how they're feeling. You have to get into all that stuff. And as a director, you have to help actors who don't quite get it, what they have to do to help to get their character out. So all of that is what a writer has to do. I mean, a good writer goes through in their head what the scene looks like, goes through in their head what's happening in the scene, has to picture it, then has to show the reader, not tell, but show the reader how the character would react in that situation. And it has to be real. So it's all the same stuff.
Yeah. Now, method acting is really interesting. Isn't that people might not even know the reference. So Heath Ledger, wasn't he a method actor?
Yes.
And he got really into the Joker. I'm just totally off tangent right there, but I was just trying to okay, method acting is when they totally get into the role and they almost stay in character.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some actors, Jack Nicholson, with some of the creepy characters that he played, the method actor. Paul Newman was Marlon Brando went through the method acting studio. These people they quote get into their character, and sometimes they have trouble letting go.
Oh, that's crazy. But authors, we do that. We actually, when we world build, and that's a very complicated thing. And you have to make it just realistic enough that it's believable. So it could be all sorts of crazy things going on in there, but it's got to have that touch of believability. And then we want to think, well, what's wrong with our world?
Yeah, exactly. Why doesn't it act like what's in my head? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, we have, I have in my first fiction novel, Ditto, is about an artificial intelligence beings. And so not only did I have to get into the head of the characters, the real life characters around that artificial being, but I also had to figure out how that artificial being thought to be able to let the reader get inside of its quote, quote, head, that's real important. I mean, the reader needs to get inside of the heads of the characters.
Yeah, I that sounds kind of creepy to me. Getting in the head of a robot or a artificial intelligence. I don't know.
Or a Jack Nicholson, that would be creepy too, I guess.
Okay, equally creepy.
But yeah, no, it's just, I've spent 5 years being a judge for the Royal Palm Literary Awards, and have a lot of chances to read a lot of stuff from different people. And one of the things that strikes me is that there are a lot of writers who haven't yet figured out that we have to know how the characters feel. We have to know that, and don't just say, she was sad about that. That doesn't count. You have to get us inside her head and show us what it is about the experiences that person had and what's going on with them now, to let us know what kind of sad it is. How sad are they really? And why are they justified in being sad or not justified in being sad? And what does that mean to their character if they're not justified to be? It's all that stuff. And I find that a lot of newer writers are very shallow at that. They're more reporters, like they're writing public relations. They're telling, here's what happened, but you're not showing us why it happened. And that's real important. Getting into the characters. In fact, I'm working on a sketch for a short pamphlet to try to explain how writers could use acting techniques to build their characters, because it works for actors. Why couldn't it work for writers?
I interviewed somebody a few years ago who was writing a memoir, and he was having trouble getting into his past self. And he was advised to walk around his apartment naked in order to have the naked truth be exposed. So he did.
Some people have trouble with emoting. I'm in a group right now where there are a couple people who just have trouble emoting. As much as you can tell them, put more emotion in your characters, they just keep there.
Yeah. I want to switch just a bit and talk about book blurbs, like that back cover blurb. Do you have trouble writing those?
I have trouble writing those, and I talked to a number of other people when I was writing my first fiction novel who have written their fiction novels, and it's hard to do too. It's just very hard. There's a concept called fresh eyes that I learned from a guy who was a commercial writer. Fresh eyes means that it's the ability to approach something you've written and see it the way the audience sees it. See it with fresh eyes, because we tend to read what's in our head. It's in our head. We know it's in our head. We wrote it, and so it kind of sounds okay to us. But writing a blurb is really crazy difficult, because as a writer, you're taught to, you write down your synopsis and you write all these details about what goes on, and you do all this stuff, and you think it's all important. And so for me, I end up writing this blurb that would go on the back of 10 encyclopedias. It's just too much stuff, and it doesn't really boil the story down to the salient points of the story, and then have some emotion. And that's really the key, is you need to step back, see the story, see the flow, how's the plot to go, where are the key elements, and then just pull those out. It's like when people tell you that you sometimes have to learn to kill your characters. You've had this favorite character that you built throughout the book, and you just gotta keep that character in. That's all there is. And I wrote this page, and this page is so beautiful, and I just have to keep. And people feel, your critique partners say, but that just doesn't fit there, Chet. You go, no, I really love it. Isn't it so? No, it doesn't fit. Okay, and you just have to learn to do that. You have to learn to do that with your back blurb too. And I would get, I had the good luck of having a series of people working with me on critiquing my book as I go. And so I let them kind of edit the heck out of it. And
That's a great idea.
That brought it down. Well, you can't write your own story about your book. You've already written the book.
Right. It's all about distance at that point, right? You have to separate yourself.
I find, after I was ready to get this book out, I had several people, read it as beta readers and go through it. And I asked them to write, comments, blurbs for it. And they would write blurbs that I couldn't write. I just couldn't write it because I didn't see the story that way. I didn't see those good things in it, or I didn't see these twists in it that they saw. So yeah, get help. Get help.
Well, Chet Meisner, how could people get in touch with you?
I have a website. It's my name, Chet, C-H-E-T, Meisner.com. And you can reach me. My phone number's there, and there's a link to my email, and I'm available.
Fantastic. Chet, are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions?
You warned me, so I'm ready.
If you could pick up your house and have the best panoramic view in the world, what would it be?
It would be an ocean on one side and a forest on the other.
Ooh, that does sound very nice. Also kind of sounds like a horror movie.
Well, let me write that down.
All right. What's your favorite breakfast?
My favorite breakfast is omelet with sausage.
Yum. And the weather outside your window right now.
Oh, sunny. And in fact, I'm looking at a forest right now.
Perfect. Well, Chet Meisner, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you, Alison. It's been enjoyable.
You have been listening to another episode of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. Alison out. Woo! We're all done. Chet Meisner was born in Wisconsin, grew up in South Florida, and attended the University of Florida. He lived briefly in Alabama, where he taught college for 2 years, then moved back to Miami, where he met and married Peri, before they moved to Atlanta and spent 2.5 decades and raised 3 wonderful children. After 10 years in Tampa, he is now living in North Carolina. He is both traditionally published and self-published. His latest book, Ditto, is a Royal Palm Literary Award winner. For more information about Chet, visit him at chetmeisner.com. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us at floridawriters.org. Until next time.